Welcome back to Talking Shit, where we are talking all sorts of shit. Schitt's Creek, that is. I'm Jess Sterling, and today we are saying best wishes, warmest regards to Schitt's Creek as we discuss the TV special that aired after the finale. And of course, I'm not alone. As always, I am joined by someone who simply doesn't want to say goodbye to this show. Stuart. Stuart, how are you?
I really don't. And I kind of ruined it for myself because I did a bad thing last week. I admitted it to Jess after the episode, after we
Mm-hmm.
recorded, but I watched this last week before we recorded the podcast, which is bad etiquette. But like, I felt like, I mean, there wasn't
You've
going to be any
earned it. Yeah.
spoilers. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did what I always complain about between seasons is I had a long wait until we recorded before I could
Mhm.
discuss it and get it off my chest. Yeah, so like I have just watched that a lot, and also all of the Schitt's Creek stuff that's now coming up on YouTube.
Yeah.
Liam Schitt, I think, is the username on YouTube, who uploads all of the as they've uploaded all of the like inside the episode and
Oh,
like
yes.
5-minute videos. Phenomenal work. Thank you so much. I doubt you're listening, but thank you so much. You have been a godsend for me this week because I need to know
Mhm.
all the details behind the scenes. And we got them
Yeah.
all in this as well. This was a really good, like, fun little addition. I'm so glad we got this.
Yeah, so we watched the special Best Wishes, Warmest Regards. I also read the book Best Wishes, Warmest
Nerd.
Regards. If you're watching the YouTube video, you can see this beautiful book that I
It is
got from
very
my local
beautiful.
library.
It's
Support your local
thick.
library. She's thick. She is hardcover. She is thick. She is meaty. Like, it is bigger than my head.
Hmm.
Um, really fun book. I do recommend, like, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably are a big enough fan of Schitt's Creek to want to check something like this out. A lot of this stuff I think I've heard. Like, I didn't learn a ton of new information that I didn't already know. But then again,
Okay.
like I said, I am like entrenched. Like, I know a lot of like the
Yeah.
cute little anecdotes. However, I will say, like, this book has some really lovely fan art all throughout, and there's a lot of behind the scenes photos. Like, I just recommend reading this book because I just think it is like such a lovely little, like, even like a coffee table book. I don't know, I really
Hmm.
enjoyed. I'm gonna pull some like little fun things that I learned about as we talk through this podcast. But yeah, really good book if anyone is interested. I hadn't read it before, I knew it existed. um but yeah, we're gonna go talk through the special, and then we'll kind of leave our big broad Schitt's Creek thoughts for next week when we wrap
Hmm.
the entire series. But today we're just gonna focus in on the very emotional special that we both watched. Stuart has now seen it twice. It is it's like I found it especially hard to watch this time because because it also to me meant like the end of this podcast journey. And so like that of course like made me even more sad. Um
Hmm.
and yeah, let's just dive in.
Yeah,
I
I was gonna
guess.
ask, like, with the feelings that it's evoking, were you more Eugene Levy in that maybe at some point there'll be an outburst of emotion and I'll update you as and when it happens? Or are you more Emily Hampshire, who was crying in every single shot that I saw at that table read?
I'm the Eugene Levy for sure. I also
Hmm.
feel like maybe and I read a little bit about this in the book, and I think we see a little bit of it in the special. I think I'm also kind of the Annie Murphy, where I can keep it together for the most part. In the book, they talk about Dan Levy mentions like he was crying the entire like last episode shooting, like every scene, every moment, he's crying.
Yeah.
And he was getting really annoyed because Annie Murphy was holding it together. Like, she was able to keep it
How
together
dare she be professional?
up until her very last scene. And then he's
Hmm.
like, I saw her face and she crumpled. Like, she just couldn't handle it. And so he was like, giddy because she finally broke down. I think I'm probably the Annie Murphy where it's like, it takes a lot to get me to that point.
Hmm.
But then once it
I
happens,
kind
it's like, oh, this is it.
Yeah. I kind of love that because that kind of speaks to the whole Annie Murphy is a little bit Alexis and vice
Mhm.
versa, because it's Alexis doing the whole, oh, I just realized this is the last time we're going to like be all here and the last time we're going to do this. And I was like, yeah, I feel that. And so the two of them sharing that same thing, I was like, I love it when they show aspects of their characters in themselves,
Mhm.
because have to remember with the parasocialness of the whole situation of falling in love with these characters is that the actors are not the characters. And I feel like there are some people who are drastically different. I will say, Catherine O'Hara, hearing her speak,
Like a normal
not as
person?
Moira, like, I'm like, oh yeah, she has always spoken like that because I have seen her in a plethora of other
Yeah.
things. But you're like, but it's just jarring after 6 seasons of Moira's voice. I'm like, this is strange. So you'd like getting that separation and realizing, yeah, they are different is
Mhm.
healthy and good. But I do kind of like it when they are a bit similar because I'm like, I feel like I
Yeah,
do like love them in a way.
and I do think there's a certain extent of writing like parts of the actors into the characters throughout
Hmm.
the years. We can get into that a little bit, some of the stuff I learned from the book and like what they discuss on the show. But let's talk about the casting because that's kind of where we started off with the special in general. And obviously with Dan and Eugene writing the show, very easy to cast them as David and Johnny. But then of course they had to tap on Catherine O'Hara's shoulder and be like, hey, we only need 15 minutes of your time. Just 15 minutes. Don't worry. Nothing more. Um, I do think this show is nowhere near as successful without the just the iconic pairing of Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara, right? They are like a comedic duo. They are known for the chemistry that they have as a duo
Hmm.
on screen. And like you just both Catherine O'Hara and Moira are one of a kind. And what something I learned from the book is that like just how much Catherine O'Hara influenced the character of Moira. The fact that she was the one who came up with the idea for the wigs. The fact that
Yeah.
she talks about a lot in the book and in passing on the special about how she decided like day of moment of what wig she would be wearing. It wasn't a what looks good with this outfit. She very much viewed it as an emotional choice of like what am I feeling today?
See,
And
I love that being true because, like, in this episode, like, she even talks about that being like the whole thing of like it's a very expressive of how like she is in her mindset. And I was like,
Mhm.
surely, but like it's planned out, right? Like you're thinking that about what the script is, but she actually decided that on the day.
Yeah, it was basically like, okay,
Wild.
we have 30 wigs for the season to present to Catherine O'Hara. Which one will she choose? And then they'd style it accordingly, right? So, yeah,
So all the time we've been shouting at wardrobe for not having enough wigs when we should have been shouting at Catherine O'Hara,
yeah, that's it. She
but we
does give a
can't
lot of
because
yeah.
like if it wasn't for her, we wouldn't have wigs. So maybe we should back off a little bit. But also, Catherine, you could have had more. Just saying.
Yeah, it was all her, like the actual creation of bringing in these wigs. And then like her wardrobe was another big, which we'll talk separately about the wardrobe, but like Catherine O'Hara had a huge influence on it. And something that I found out that I was tickled by is we know Moira is known for like her language, her use of like these really interesting different words. I found out that apparently in the first season of the show, one of the makeup artists, Lucky Bromhead, gave Catherine O'Hara a book called Foyle's Filivery, a treasury of unusual words. And Catherine began replacing words in the script with some words that she would find in this book. And like there's a whole in this book that I read, there's a
Oh my
whole
gosh.
list. There's a whole list of words. Like the overzealousness, gobsmacked, glee ridden, confabulate. You know, like there's a ton of words that she would just replace in the script. Like this is it's just so much love and care that goes into the show. And Catherine O'Hara, like Moira does not exist without Catherine O'Hara. There's just simply no other answer for who this character is or could be. And I love how much she brought to the role of Moira. It's perfect casting. And we're
Hmm.
just so blessed and lucky to have like Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara acting side by side on a sitcom for 6 seasons, you know?
Yeah. Like, I loved that when she was talking about, obviously doing the pilot pitch, and then, like, was it 14, 15 minutes that she, like, was needed for, and then that will be it. And then they have to, like, go cap in hand and be like, "Yeah, another 13 episodes. Do you
Yeah, we'll
wanna"
take it season by season, don't worry.
Yeah, and I get the impression that there's this very kind of like Hollywood thing that she goes, "Oh, I couldn't possibly. I'm just so busy." But then, like, by her own admission, doing nothing, of
It was
course.
so funny. It was so
Yeah,
good.
and I
Yeah.
I I think even in her acceptance speech at the end, she was talking about, like, being able to play, like, a character of her age, like, and not being kind of like there are so few roles out there for this kind of character, especially one that you can have your real stamp on, and to have that kind of freedom and flexibility to, like, not play a trope, to not play the kind of, like,
Yeah.
usual shtick that you'll always get and you have to reject because you've got some sense of principles when it comes to, like, your career because you've had success previously. So it's like it's
Yeah.
great for her to have that opportunity. And yeah, of course, like, so great to, like, bring the band back together with Eugene Levy. And yeah, there's this whole aspect of, like, it feels, especially with Dan and Eugene being the ones to, like, really kind of, like, bring this to the forefront, with Sarah Levy being in the original pilot as well, it being a family thing. So naturally, you reach out to the extended family when you go to the casting as the first kind of,
Yeah.
like, step. And I feel like once you've done that, you're, like, cooking with gas, really. It's just
Yeah.
finding that additional puzzle piece, which is really tough to find, which is the Alexis in the whole situation,
Yeah.
which seemingly was quite a difficult thing, I understand, until Annie Murphy turned up.
Yeah,
I understood that.
one last thing on
Oh, sorry.
Moira before we move on to Alexis. I do just want to shout out the fact that number one, Catherine O'Hara was the one who came up with the idea for the final look of at Patrick and David's wedding and the hat itself. She came up with the idea of the rolled hair, just like 10 out of 10 incredible. And also, something to note, which is I kind of I feel like I knew it in the back of my mind, but I don't know that I ever vocalized it on the podcast, is Moira never says the name of the town. She never says Schitt's Creek in the entire run of the show. We joked about when she does that commercial for the town, how she
Yeah.
doesn't say the name. She never says the name. And interestingly enough, in like each actor wrote a little blurb about their character's journey in this book. And I love that Catherine O'Hara points out, Daniel, Eugene, and I agreed, though, that Moira would never totally embrace life in the town and would be the one to keep her family on course to one day get out of here. Like, and that's like
Wow.
exactly what we said, that,
Yeah.
she had lived that small town life. She knew it wasn't for her. And she's the one who's always kind of, pushing them in that direction to move out. So yeah, I just thought it was like very interesting, and just a really great note that she
Uh,
never says the name of the town.
That's fascinating to get that kind of vindication of the stuff that we've been saying this whole time, and to know that, like, it was an intentional character choice as well, like in the writing of
Mhm.
Moira. Like, it's not just something that kind of just happens to fall that way. That's so interesting. I never quite clocked that she's never properly said it. Like, I imagine she would have at some point, but
No,
yeah, she
Johnny
always
definitely
refers to it
does. He
as.
said it multiple times, but Moira never says it. Like she,
Hmm.
she says like our little town or whatever, but she never
Yeah.
actually says the name.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah. Um
That's a.
But moving on to Annie Murphy as Alexis, she is certainly the most unknown member
Yeah.
going into the show. I love when they show us people's audition videos. She's so dressed down, like she has like the bun in her hair, but she's so pure. Like that's the
Hmm.
word I think of when I think of Annie Murphy and also Alexis, is just how pure she is. I remember, I've heard when she talks about like the hands, it's like she would always imagine herself holding a little like purse. That's how she always
Hmm.
did the hands. It's just incredible casting. They found this like gem, and nothing makes me happier, Stuart, than when you watch a show and it's like it's a group of unknowns. Now in this case it's not, that's not the case. She's
Hmm.
one of the only ones who's like pretty unknown, but to find this like little gem that you've never seen in anything else, nothing makes me happier than to see them get success.
Yeah, especially like it's like the amount of potential that's there, and they just find the perfect thing to, like, tap into it is just it's so satisfying. But it was like, from my understanding, and I can't remember where I'm citing this from, but I believe that Eugene Levy had some reservations at first, because when he first saw it, obviously, like, she auditioned with like natural brunette
Messy
hair,
bun, yeah.
and he was just like, I don't see it. And Tam was just like, no, 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 trust me. Like,
Yeah.
we got to do it. And then as soon as like she was in place, it was like, I see what you saw here, kind of thing.
Mhm.
And like, I do kind of like that. I like that Dan almost like fought for the correct Alexis that was in his mind when writing it as well, which I
Yeah.
think is a testament to, again, the whole, like, when Dan talks about the writing experience with his father, and talking about how, like, Eugene insisted, no, we've got to get to know these characters before we even start writing like episodes, and went on for weeks. And I was like, you don't get that attention to the casting unless you go through that process beforehand, which
Right.
I think is just so great for, like, Dan to be empowered to be able to push back on that a little bit when his father doesn't quite see the same vision he sees, but he wouldn't have been able to do that unless his father had insisted that he understood the character as
Yeah.
much as he did. So I thought that was just like a wonderful thing of Kismet. And again, like, Annie Murphy immediately, like in the audition tapes that we saw in the episode, it was Alexis. Like, the whole twi, like, that inflection was there
Mhm.
immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And the
it's
whole
just wonderful.
the "You David" of it all, right? Like, that became like a sensation. It still is.
Hmm.
Even that Dan Levy, like, that was all Annie Murphy, like the intonation, the way in which she says it. And so that made Dan Levy be like, I'm just gonna write things that end with David so that it'll happen again. Like, it's like, burn David, right? Like, there are so many of those moments because of the way Annie Murphy plays this character. It's just so lovely. So, like, obviously casting couldn't be better. We have like a menagerie of really lovely side characters who all get cast, and I love that they're also included in this special. They're also included in this book about just like talking about how wonderful their time was, how it felt like a family, how going to work just was always just like very delightful, and they were honored to have like 6 seasons of steady work of like a
Hmm.
few months where they would just have a really great time. And I bookmarked some things in this book that I needed to bring up, one of which is from one of my fave side guys, Bob. And I died when I read this. I absolutely died. I immediately took a picture and sent it to you.
Hmm.
Let's see. Um, I'm not one to think about my character all that much. It just kind of happens. So with Bob, I just started playing him. Fortunately, early on in the first season, there was a moment when I had to run out from Bob's garage to see Johnny. I remember it was quite a long run, and I thought to myself, well, geez, I've got to do something to make this interesting. So, spur of the moment, I just kind of came up with a goofy run, which wasn't exactly a run, but more like a shimmy. It ended up really appealing to me, and as soon as I did it, I suddenly felt at home with the character. It just gave me this attitude and made me think I might have something here. The Bob Jog is
It's
integral to the character of Bob.
it's offensive how that's the case. Like, whenever you're doing impressions, they often say, like, have something to bounce off of, like have your lead in kind of what, like, word or something that you have to do. For him to have the Bob jog be that is outrageous, and I hate that it is so integral to his character because of what it means for, like, your obsession with it.
Yeah.
But also, we gotta get onto the Bob shimmy does not roll
No,
off the
Bob
tongue. The
Jog
Bob
it
jog is so
has to be
much
Bob
infinitely
Jog.
better branding. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. I love it. I think that like all of the side characters are really cast perfectly. There's a lot in this book about the relationship between Roland and Jocelyn and kind of how, they're high school sweethearts, and how something that endears you to Roland is his love for Jocelyn. And that without that piece, he is not a likable character. It is a
Hmm.
necessary piece to have, a necessary piece of the puzzle. There was plenty of information with Ronnie, interviewing the actor that plays Ronnie, and like it's just so lovely. Like, it really, I think something that is really important in a sitcom and getting it right, especially when it's a small community like Schitt's Creek, is getting the side characters, you know,
Hmm.
getting them, casting them correctly, and then maintaining their presence on the show. And I
Yeah.
think like the best shows do it, right? The Office, Parks and Rec, like Schitt's Creek, like all of those shows really lean on the side characters and build them out a little bit, right? You're not going to get like fully dedicated stories to them, but they're always around, you know?
Yeah, like you're not gonna get like a Ronnie episode, but you're gonna get like Ronnie being fairly prominent as a side character in an episode, kind of thing. And having that consistency of this like cast that is always there for the most part, I think helps build realism. It helps you build like an affection and a fondness for them because
Mhm.
you come to expect things. You come to see like how they've changed as well, how they're like kind of reacting off of the growth that the Rose family are going through as well. So I think, yeah, it's integral to it. And so, yeah, that's why I appreciate the care and attention that they've gone through to like really get this nailed. It just seems that the whole process, I mean, like I could never be an actor because the process, like now with like apparently it's all self tapes that they have to do and like they send those in. Seems like a
Mhm.
nightmare whole situation. Like Emily Hampshire even said like she really wanted to do self tapes because she was getting so
When she got
nervous
dropped by
from
an agent, so funny. So
and it's just
good.
like fair, but like
Yeah.
I appreciate them going through that process as performers because I mean it's like must be so difficult, and so it's nice to see them after like going through the hardship of that process to like come out with such success afterwards. I mean, Emily Hampshire alone, like kind of going into God knows what Marvel stuff now there is, but like
Mhm.
I think there is just this whole thing of just I could have been someone else. Like we could have had a completely different. And I'm glad we didn't see other people who auditioned. For one thing, I don't think it's quite a classy thing to show other people's auditions that didn't get the role. But like it's just
Yeah.
an interesting thought that like Alexis could have looked differently. Like Alexis could have had completely different like mannerisms and
Yes.
like maybe it didn't quite go as viral and the show wasn't as successful. Like it really is like this whole kind of like lightning striking kind of like situation of just how rare and special this is. Yeah, I just these behind the scene things always kind of like make me feel that. And so when they start talking about it being over now, I'm just like, it's just yeah, it's over because it's
Yeah.
just so special.
Yeah. Um, okay, are we ready to move into wardrobe, which is a
Yes.
huge topic and something that is really, really explored in the book that I read. Um, I think obviously it's notable because Moira and David specifically have such unique looks that are you know, in a way a lot of the book recalled like, you know, David trying to emulate his mother, right? They both kind of dress in like black and white 90%
Hmm.
of the time and, you know, being very thrifty with their budget and trying to like acquire things in the off season and going to all these thrift stores and buying, you know, original like actual fashionable pieces of wardrobe specifically for Moira but also for David. In this book there's an entire couple of pages dedicated to every sweater that David wears on the show
What?
and they talk about the importance, and you can even see it. If you're watching the YouTube video, I'm holding up the book. Now, what you're seeing is mostly black, white, and gray. However, when I hold up this book, you can see there's like a tiny bit of color in the center of the page.
A
And that's
little bit.
because that is the sweater that David wears in open mic night, which has flames on
The
it,
flames, yeah, yeah.
which is very much like, oh, his heart is on fire. You know, there's a screen grab from the actual episode itself of like, yeah, the flames, like it's the burning passion, the love between him and Patrick. Like the attention to detail and the way that Dan Levy talks about wardrobe tells the story that isn't in the script. Like it tells a
Mhm.
story just by being visual art is so lovely and something that is like nothing I've ever really paid attention to. Obviously, there's like color theory and Breaking Bad and that sort of stuff, but it was never something I really honed in on. This show has dedicated so much time and attention to detail on the wardrobe of these characters, specifically Moira and David, that like you can't not pay attention to it, you know?
Yeah, it's the point that Dan makes of like how what you wear is an expression of what you think of yourself. Um, quite clearly, as we talked about just before we recorded this, we're both wearing black because we're in mourning at the moment because the show is over. But it's funny because you do look at the way in which everyone is dressed on this show. Like Johnny projects suited and booted, like he's a businessman with a business plan. Alexis is like starts off as like Bohemia Coachella girl and then becomes more of a just, fashionable businesswoman kind of thing.
Mhm.
Moira, true to herself, doesn't change, is erratic all over the place, steam ceiling, but she is the star, which is what she is. And David's, like, quite rightly, is fashion aware, but also draws attention to himself, but also hides a lot of himself behind a facade of that. And I think it's just so true. And the way in which they spent so much time, budget on all of this, and like thought about the importance of it, really kind of like is so true. And it's really underappreciated aspect of production in general. I, for one, tend to like favor things like soundtracks and things like that in like big sweeping films and like
Yeah.
big shows like Succession. I was like, the soundtrack is what sold me on it most of all because I
Mm.
adored it. But on a show like this, where it's a bit more understated, here's another way in which you can really truly express what is going on in a scene and get to a bit deeper, actually, because that maybe the music won't do, is that it will tell you what they're thinking about themselves interiorly. It's a
Mhm.
fascinating idea, and I never really considered it to that detail. Ordinarily, I always think of wardrobe as just being, oh, it's historically accurate or it's not,
Yeah, it's what they're
and that
wearing,
being
who
that.
cares? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an entire section in the book dedicated to Moira's wigs, and it has every single wig. There's also an entire section on Moira's outfits and every single look that she wears throughout the show. One of my favorite little bits is the fact that we talked a lot about this too, about the dress that Moira wants to wear to a red carpet event, right? And like her buying it and then it being too expensive, and then it ends up being the same dress she ends up wearing. Very similar story for the show itself. Like they could not find a dress that they liked enough to make work. And then they found this one, which was apparently a Pamela Roland. Oh, it's funny, Roland dress. And they were like, it is so expensive. It is so expensive. They did end up buying it. They had to send a person, they had to fly someone from Canada to New York to go pick up the dress because
Wow.
they would not ship overseas or something. So they had to go pick up the dress, got stuck in a snowstorm, had to spend the night in New York. Like it's like the story of acquiring the dress, and they're like, well, hopefully it fits Catherine O'Hara because we don't really have many other options at this point. And apparently
Yeah.
it fit her beautifully. So yeah, and then the fact that they of course it shows up in 2 episodes because you spend all this money on the dress. Now you're going to have to wear the dress for the actual thing. So I love the story behind the dress because it is so true to the show. Like this show is like the little engine that could, right? They don't have a huge budget. They're living, but it makes them scrappy. It makes them like go to thrift stores and find things within their budget, make the zip tie headband, like they get thrifty and crafty and really creative with their decisions, and wardrobe being like a big part of that. I loved getting to see too on the special, getting to watch Catherine O'Hara trying on different outfits and Dan Levy being there being like, oh no, I like that. You know what I mean? Like it was really interesting to
Yeah.
see that process.
When she comes out in the big tassely thing, and then they're like, "I think we need some bling," because like, and it's already shiny as hell. I was like, so funny. That must have been a ball to like do, and like to
Mhm.
just and, like, yeah, it's work, but like it's enjoyable work, isn't it? Like trying on loads of clothes, especially Moira's like wardrobe, just being
Oh
silly
yeah.
and a bit goofy. Did they try and return that dress? Like, is it
No.
actually like the show?
No, they kept it. They kept it. Yeah, it's
Jeez.
I
I
loved it.
can't I can't get over that. Like spending like that much money and obviously like going out and doing it. But also the more thrifty things are finding like legit Alexander McQueen for like $300. And it's
Yeah.
like you don't get McQueen that cheap. Like and it's one of I think our favorite outfits. It's the one that she wears when they're having the stroll down Schitt's Creek. And
Yeah.
it's like she looks amazing in it. So it's like I feel like those little diamonds in the rough that they did and they're like proud of certainly got celebrated really well on the show, which I
Yeah.
again I love. It's like I don't think anything is ever hidden away wardrobe wise, but there are certain pieces that seem to have more prominence. For a start, I mean, like that McQueen one is literally like below me right now, like in this picture. It's like
Yeah.
those ones are the ones that get photographed and get shared around a lot. So it's good to see that work being appreciated on a larger level than just being in the show.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about with wardrobe before we move on?
No, just that I just reiterate that I'd never really given it that consideration before, and I really appreciate this documentary for like really highlighting it, and for highlighting the crew in general. Like I think as well, like when they talked about that at the end of the like filming, and Eugene saying that they'd had most of the crew since day one, and it was largely the same people that were turning up to work each and every day. I think that speaks to again the vibe of not only the cast being feeling like a family, but the crew feeling like a family. And I gotta say, like
Yeah.
it was a really kind of like my heart grew a few sizes when I saw all of the little cast pictures of them. Like obviously the one
Yeah.
after the final episode at the Kit Kat Club as well, like them all kind of like in the outfits and stuff. It was just a real, I don't know, like end of school kind of like vibe. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Something else that is like worth noting is whenever Catherine O'Hara is asked about Moira's hair and makeup and wardrobe, she will always say, "Oh, like yes, I did pick out the wigs from the selection. Like I had the last choice of like this is the one I want to wear, but my hair and makeup artist was the one who then styled it and had to be ready for last minute
Yeah.
decisions." Like they really do love to highlight the members of their crew in terms of how integral they are to the production.
Hmm.
And the fact that they had so many of these people for the entire run of the show says a lot about how great that set must have been.
Yeah.
Um, okay, let's talk next about the impact that this show had on the LGBTQ. It's we talked a little bit about this already. I know we talked about it
Ugh.
throughout the run of our coverage here, but like this was the thing that I remembered most going into the rewatch of the special was the letter that they receive.
Hmm.
I mean, I've seen this clip a million times. I love it. I think it is like so special. And just so lovely. The letter from the
Mama
serendipity
Bears.
doodah for moms.
Oh, it's just such a great group name, and just the fact they call themselves
Um,
the Mama Bears, and they got what is it, 1,800 people to
uh
sign it.
yeah,
It
yeah. 18
was.
yeah, more than 1,800 of us are signing this letter. Yeah. They have the entire letter in the screen grabbed in the
Do
book.
they?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna
It's
send me a
it's
picture.
really lovely. It's really lovely. Like I mean, we've talked a lot about the impact of David and Patrick's relationship on Schitt's Creek being a place that is welcoming and not a single person being homophobic, and like basically creating this show in an ideal town where Patrick and David's love story isn't filled with tragedy and heartbreak and difficulty, that their relationship woes are just like anybody else's, any heteronormative relationship woes. Uh, I love that. I think it is so special. It is something that we just don't see, especially now. It feels like the world can be going backwards at times, and to look back on how this show was created and how much care was put into the LGBTQ relationships on the show, it's just so lovely. Like I love Dan Levy specifically saying we weren't trying to teach a lesson.
Hmm.
We were just trying to like make something true and like genuine, and like for people to take something away from that is very meaningful.
Yeah, like when he talked about people using the wine analogy to like come out to their family, and not really considering that when you're writing it, must have been something really um deep to reconcile, because I mean that's just the act of coming out is just such a strange thing to have to do socially, and to have helped people with that without realizing that you were going to help people with that, is just must be the hugest gift. But I love that Dan, and the way in which he wrote David, it wasn't intentional. It was just a point of truth of just who someone is. And so I deeply, deeply appreciate that. But again, it's not as if it was like, oh, okay, that's just an aspect of them. We're never going to acknowledge it. There is still aspects of dealing with the hardships, but it's not like framed from a point of tragedy. Like Patrick still contends with obviously the kind of like difficulty of that situation of like having to effectively come out. David still kind of reconciles an open, like handling an open declaration of love being expressed and publicly amongst people, and for that to be part of a deeper, more complex wall that is just David, and like bringing down not only that kind of like public embarrassment situation, but also the fear of judgment that comes from the fact that he's had a childhood that is in the real world, and these things are there. They don't hide that away. They don't act as if it's never happened, but they're in a place where that stuff doesn't happen, and that is, I think, just so joyous. And yeah, it may not have been something that's entirely intentional. Like, I don't think from day one, I think like point number one on the whiteboard is no homophobia and like it's going to be in this
Yeah.
town. It's just something that comes about from like, why would we want to include that in our show? And I just appreciate that. Like, if you've got ownership over something, why include that bullshit? Like,
Mhm.
it's
Make the
it's not
town you
worth it.
wanna
It's not
live
enjoyable.
in. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why the Mama Bear's like letter is so wonderful, because they express exactly that. Is that like you put more joy in the world because you've portrayed what the world will hopefully look like,
Mhm.
if it was more inclusive, if it was more accepting. Yeah, that letter demolished me
Yeah.
when I first heard it. On the second watch again, and like I watched a clip of it on YouTube over and over again. Like I mocked her earlier in the episode, but I was Emily Hampshire in that moment. I was just sobbing and reaching for
Just
the
sobbing,
tissues
yeah.
constantly.
Speaking of
It's so
of
good.
speaking of Emily Hampshire, there was a really funny moment in the book. There are little behind the episode blurbs for every single episode, from different characters depending on what episode it was. And Emily Hampshire writes about the season 1, episode 10 with the "I like the wine, not the label" moment.
Mhm.
And it's so interesting. She says, "A few years later, I saw comments from people discussing and debating my sexuality after a relationship I was in had become public. Suddenly, I felt like I had to define this thing about me that had always been complicated. I remember asking Dana at one point, 'What am I? I just fall for a person, for their vibe, and I genuinely don't even think about their gender. I'm either attracted to them or I'm not, based on kind of everything but gender.' And Dan was like, 'Do you not watch our show? You're pan.'" What I love most about this scene now is how unfazed and accepting Stevie is.
Mhm.
I think Stevie's attitude towards David's sexuality was an early example of how the people of Schitt's Creek would never be homophobic and always be accepting of people's differences. I love this. I just think it's like, it's so wonderfully beautiful. I love that they're all wearing the shirts in the pride parade of "Like the wine, not the label."
Mhm.
Um, it is using it as a tool to come out to someone. Like, the fact that your show is so well written and so just like brilliantly put that someone could use that as a way to do something as difficult as coming out to family and friends. Like, it's just
Mhm.
that's all that's so impactful. So I love that about the show. I just think it's so brilliant. It is like I think one of my biggest takeaways from the show, just because amongst the many things that it does differently than your normal average sitcom, the way it treats LGBTQ characters, and it's just so great. They just do it so right.
Yeah, I think it's exactly that. They do it so right because they thread the needle I think, perfectly, because there is a swing to this. There is pandering, there's preaching, and I don't particularly like that. I mean, like, I for one am just there going, oh God, like, this is going to just convey the wrong thing that you're conveying here, which is righteousness. And like, yes, you're coming from a correct
Mhm.
perspective. But the problem is when it's presented as being very righteous, people just zone out. And what this does, it doesn't do that. It does it in a welcoming way, but it doesn't give up ground. Like, it doesn't make concessions and hold something back. It just presents a truth of what is possible. And I appreciate it for that specifically, because I mean, I hate it like when it's just so sickly preachy. And like, I appreciate the gesture, don't get me wrong, and I appreciate when people do use a platform that they've got to portray something that is positive and is progressive like that. But equally, I'm like, you're coaxing review bombs, you're coaxing like bad things, and I'm glad that this show doesn't do that, because it offers a respite from the stuff that does do that. Like, it means that the
Mhm.
same representation isn't always same, and it isn't always preachy. Um, I think I've worded that in the way I wanted to. It's a difficult one to work, because I don't want to like it to come across as like, oh,
Yeah.
I hate all this woke shit. Is absolutely not that. It's just more that, like, I appreciate finesse. I appreciate it from, like, as Dan Levy talked
Mhm.
about, the comedy aspect of it. I appreciate it coming from a point of sophistication, and having just that lens on it, as opposed to, I think, the most blunt and to the point lens, which
Right.
is why I appreciate it so much.
Okay. Let's talk about the awards, the Emmys that this show has won. Um because it's pretty incredible. First of all, the fact that they also win a GLAAD award is just so lovely. They won it in no, well no, so yeah, so they won it in 2019 as well as in 2020 and 2021 for outstanding comedy series. And then they got the GLAAD Davidson Valentini award in 2019. So that alone is like pretty darn incredible. But the Emmys, and we talked a little bit about this last episode, I believe, because it was the finale. But best television series, musical or comedy, they won. Eugene Levy was nominated for best actor. Catherine O'Hara won for best actress. And then both Dan Levy and Annie Murphy were nominated for supporting actor and actress, which, like, supporting, what do we okay, that's fine. I'm not going to get too in the weeds because I
Sure.
can I can bitch and moan about the Emmys and their categories forever.
Mhm.
Uh but like it's so great. And I really enjoyed the special hit on this show becoming more popular, and that it started out as like this like little show that could little engine that could, right? Like it was once it in my opinion, I don't know if this is 100% true. To me, it always felt like once it hit Netflix, that was when it really took off in its
Mhm.
popularity, because just there were more eyes on it, especially more American eyes on it, because it's a Canadian show. It really, really took off once it hit Netflix and just got this like popularity that I like that the show didn't really recognize until it was like about to end. There is something
Mhm.
so quaint and beautiful about them not really realizing how famous they are until they're finishing up.
It's kind of, I think, good. Like, it also meant that there was no pressure. Like, I think it was quite at the beginning of the
Yeah.
episode that Dan was talking about. Oh, like, how are you coping with the pressure of writing the final season? It's like, done it. Don't need to like worry about the pressure of everyone kind of like laboring that onto it and stuff. So I think that's really good. It's just strange that like it's such like it's lauded with awards just as it comes to an end. So that you get strange things like winning a casting Emmy when you're 6 seasons deep and you haven't cast anyone in any new roles, particularly.
Yeah.
Like, who is there really? Maybe what's his face who played Moira's counterpart on Summer's Day.
Oh,
I
yes.
can't think of his name right now.
Clifton.
Yes, like, maybe that, but like,
Oh,
really, it's more of a celebration, right?
Yeah, I'm now realizing. So that was the Golden Globes. The Emmys, sorry, apologies. That was Golden Globes I was looking at. There's a huge list of awards and nominations
Oh
for the
yeah.
show, obviously. They were nominated for a ton of things in 2019, didn't actually win anything until 2020, where they won the most of like any comedy series has won, where they won Outstanding Comedy Series, Lead Actor for Eugene Levy, Lead Actress for Catherine O'Hara, Supporting Actor for Dan Levy, Supporting Actress for Annie Murphy, Writing for a Comedy Series for Dan Levy, Directing for a Comedy Series for Dan Levy and Andrew Cividino, Contemporary Costumes, Casting, and then they were nominated for hairstyling, makeup, single camera picture editing, and sound mixing. So like the fact that they won 9 awards in 2020, I
Yeah.
remember watching this because it was like, and they're up again. It was like, and they're up again.
Yeah.
And they're up again.
It's so funny
Yeah.
when it cuts to the nominees and it's like everyone on Zoom, and then you've got the rest of them in the studio, social distance away from each other with
Yeah.
masks and stuff. It's like, I wonder who's winning this one. But there was
Yeah.
this kind of like, I guess for the four of them, for all of like the acting, actor and actress, like kind of nominations, for all four of them to win in their respective categories was just so wonderful. And especially like kind of
Yeah.
with Dan and like Annie, like probably not being a shoe in necessarily, because obviously there is an element with awards. It's almost as if you get awarded for things after you've
For your entire
earned it in a
career.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Colin Firth, like famously got it a year after A Single Man. Leonardo DiCaprio got it after he did. I think it was after The Revenant. No, should have got it the year before. Like, there's all these ones of like they should have won it before, and so like there's an aspect of like Katherine and Eugene should have won Emmys years ago for just
Mhm.
being absolutely like fantastic, just presences on our screen. So there's often like this thing of just, okay, well, finally we should reward them. But there also was very much like a Return of the King, in that this is the last time we're going to get the chance to like give this awards to this
Yeah.
particular entity. We may as well give it to them now.
Yeah, it happened with Succession. It happens with a lot of shows when it's
Mhm.
their last season, they're like, "Okay, just give it to them. Just give it
Yeah.
to them." Yeah. Not that they weren't deserving. They obviously were very deserving of all of the
Oh
awards.
no.
But
Yeah. But it doesn't
yeah.
happen with all shows. Game
No.
of Thrones. Just saying. You have to stick the landing.
Well, and there are shows that end and don't ever get recognized in ways they should, which
Exactly.
is
Yeah.
even more heartbreaking. So yeah, and then speaking of ending, right? Like the show mostly ended on their own terms. You know, they knew it was going to be their final season. They were able to write the ending how they wanted to. They were able to. This is the beautiful thing: is ending it when you're at your best, right? Like not waiting to be canceled, not going for so long that you run out of storylines, that it's like improbable that these people would still be living in Schitt's Creek. It felt like the perfect time to end the show, where every character, in my opinion at least, had a very satisfying wrap. Every character had a really wonderful arc that ended beautifully. And not every show gets that. You know, this was around the time, I think, maybe a little before this, is when shows finally, it felt like, ended on their own terms, or at least started to. Some shows did, unlike, you
Mhm.
know, like Friends, which I love, but aired for 10 seasons and that was just too many. There are shows that just went on for too long. And I love that the show got to end on their own terms and got to end in a way that, like, we get to do what we want to do for our final season. And the fans were largely very accepting of that.
Yeah, that's what I really do appreciate, is that like when you cultivate a show that doesn't talk down to your audience are going to understand when you say it's time to end. And I think as well, like all good things do come to an end. And I think most of the fans that have been attracted to this show, ourselves included, so I'm going to give myself a big pat on the back here. We're fairly reasonable. I think we understand that like it can't go on forever, and it'd be awful. Like, can you imagine if, I mean, I say it would be awful. I mean, we'd get to podcast for a little bit longer. But could you imagine if it went on for like another like 3, 4 seasons and it
Too
got
many.
bad? Like, can you
Yeah.
imagine being here and like not being able to have an episode like this where we get to celebrate it, talk about them winning all of the awards, talk about them ending on a high, and instead going, oh, it's gone downhill ever since Catherine O'Hara left. It's gone
Trust
awful
me,
ever
I
since
have
everyone moved
covered
on to other stuff.
shows. I've covered shows that went on too long, and it's really bad when you get to the end of covering a show. Looking at you, Felicity, and you're like, "Thank God that mess is over. Like, thank God I am done with this," because it becomes a slog. It becomes unfun to rag on something that you love so dearly, but that has become a shell of what it once was. And so the
Yeah.
fact that this show didn't get to that point, I'm so grateful for. It ended at the perfect time, and it ended when, like, gosh, we needed that. Like, I can't express to you how badly we needed a really lovely ending for this show in 2020. So, they really nailed it, I think.
Yeah. Absolutely did.
I did have a couple other little fun tidbits from the book. We did speculate, Stuart, on how much we thought Twyla's check to Alexis was for
Oh,
in
yes.
the penultimate episode of the show. And I thought this was very funny that apparently, so they had a prop check, but they also talk about in this book, like, how all of the books, everything, all of the writing was real. They didn't do the like
Mhm.
lorem ipsum, whatever the heck, like
Yep.
everything was done. And so they had a prop check, and Sarah Levy looked at it, and apparently it was made out for $50,000. And Sarah Levy said,
That's what I
"What?"
guessed.
That, I think that is what you guessed. Sarah Levy said, "What? This is bullshit." She couldn't believe that Twyla would be that cheap, given how she had many millions of dollars at her disposal. So Sarah ran off set, found a pen, and added a whole bunch of zeros to the check.
That's so funny.
There's just some really cute little tidbits in here. There's apparently there was a scene cut from, I believe it was open mic night, where that involved like Twyla having an improv troupe. That, like, please release the tapes on
Yeah.
that. Like, I must see this.
Give us the Twilight improv edit, you
Please,
cowards.
please. I also would really love to see that 15-minute pilot they put together where Twyla is a nerd and has glasses.
I have seen some clips of it.
Yeah.
I remember like when I was like, okay, I can search for stuff. I was like, I want the behind the
Yeah.
scenes, I want the bloopers, I want everything. I did see some clips, but I don't think I've been able to find the whole thing though.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's weird because it's almost like David is tanned in it, like spray tanned
Weird.
orange, Cheeto looking strange.
Yeah.
Could just be bad camera work, and it could just be, I don't know. But like
Yeah.
there was almost like a vibe of like him hanging around with the emo kids a little bit. Like I kind of got that vibe. It was really strange vibes. And yeah, Twyla was drastically different. Not a fan. Glad that
No, I
Twyla
think this
became
is,
the Twyla we came to love.
yeah, this version is a much better version of Twyla. Also, apparently in the episode, the Asbestos Fest episode where Moira performs, it was Catherine O'Hara who roped Dan Levy into performing with her. So I thought that was very cute. And
Love that.
she wrote the little thing all on her own. So yeah, there's a lot of, again, if you are a big fan of Schitt's Creek, I do recommend getting this book from your local library and reading through it, because it was a joy, and it's just fun to, like, again, look at the pictures and like so many good little memories,
I'm
from
gonna go seek it
behind
out.
the
I need
scenes.
to read it.
It's really good. So yeah,
Mutt? Did I just see Mutt there?
I know
thought
we
about
can't end
Mutt in
on
ages.
we can't end on Mutt's face. Oh, that's we can there we
Yeah, end
go.
on that
That's
face.
better. Also,
Although that's a weird picture of Bad.
there was a shot though in the special. I don't remember when or why. It was definitely towards the end though. There was a shot in the special that it was like David and Patrick, Dan Levy and Noah, anyway, coming out of like a car or something. And no one was wearing blue jeans. And like the donk was donking so hard.
The
noting.
series is over, and yet Donk Watch is still on, people.
Donk Watch is always on. It's always yeah. So I don't know. Those are like the other fun tidbits, but I do recommend checking this book out if you're so inclined. It's a really lovely read, and there's a lot of thought and care put into it. It's by Dan and Eugene Levy, if I didn't already say that, but there's like contributions from every person in the show, including actors, directors, wardrobe, all of that. So a lot of really fun fan art as well.
Love that.
So yeah, I don't know. Stuart, anything else before we wrap up until we talk about the series as a whole next week?
Yeah, I think that it's basically now or never, everyone. Like, this is our penultimate. Our next episode will be our last. Not our last podcast together. We do have some stuff like cooking that we'll hopefully, I think next week we're thinking possibly announcing. But for Talking Shit, if you wanted to have your feedback aired out, whether it's emailed, whether it's 5-star reviews, we'll read it all. So podcast@talkingshit.com if you want to email in. You can find us on the socials, Talking Shit. You can find me on the socials, Stuart Drinks Tea. You can find Jess at the Jess Sterling.
That's it.
He remembers.
The one and only, baby.
Find us on whatever platform you can and send us in anything you want. As long as it's just not, just absolute horrible.
It'd be nice, please.
It'd be nice. But we'll say we've had messages in for like feedback recently, and it's just been adorable. It's been lovely. Like all the the well wishes and the sadness that's been expressed of us like coming to a close. Yeah. We've got some really lovely listeners, so we'd love to like hear from you. And this is probably the last real opportunity where we'll go through it all. We'll go through it all in waves. And the thing that I've been teasing for ages, for 2 weeks, we will have a voice from a member of the cast. I invite you to speculate who. I will warn you, it is not one of the main four.
No, of course it's not.
High.
We have a budget,
still wonderful. They're still wonderful.
Yes. So any feedback you send in or have already sent in, we will get to next week. We'll save that all for next week. Hopefully you have something to say. I mean, I love the show. My love for the show has only grown since we started this project. Obviously, I think talking about something week after week and really dissecting it, you grow to love it even more and appreciate it even more. I'm sure it won't be very long until my next rewatch of the show, because I have no shame and I will watch it a million times. So yeah.
I was about to make a joke about how I might start a rewatch, but it'll take me like 1.5 years to get through it. It doesn't have to be that way. I could probably binge it in a weekend if I wanted to.
Yeah.
Probably not the most healthy thing to do, but I probably could do it.
No.
Yeah.
So yeah, next week we'll talk through each character's journey. We'll talk about the final calculations on the MVPs and LVPs.
We will crown an ultimate MVP and an ultimate LVP. There will be a decisive victor. And if there isn't, we will make them battle to the death.
Oh, lovely. And yeah, we'll talk about all of it. We'll talk about everything. We'll wrap things up. We'll put a nice little bow on it. So that will be for next week. And we'll announce what's coming up next for us. So be sure to tune in. I think that's everything we have, Stuart. So until next week, warmest regards.
And best wishes.
Tweet us on Facebook or leave us a review, and you say, yeah, okay, I think I will.